Hi, I'm Mary.
And I'm Katie, and this is The Housewife Did It.
True Crime Edition. If you love us,
We love you
please,
too.
yes. And we love you so much that if you had a podcast, we would like and subscribe and follow and give it 5 stars.
We absolutely would.
And you should treat your neighbors as yourself. So,
Mm-hmm.
thanks. Um, okay. So, no real time true crime.
I have a real-time true crime question.
Okay, just kidding.
You can help me, maybe.
Okay.
So, I saw that, crime scene photos of Gypsy Rose
Yes.
Blanchard's mom were released.
Mhm.
Then everywhere else, people were like, they've been out here forever. How have y'all been
Mhm.
ignoring them? So I'm like, wait, what?
Mhm.
And apparently it is making people hate her more. So what are we finding out that's different than what we thought we knew?
Um, I have seen some of them. The ones I've seen don't really, to me, differ from the
Yeah.
storyline.
And I thought there were
I,
some in documentaries.
yeah, from what I understand, and again, I haven't seen these pictures, but apparently there are some pictures that, in some ways, negate that she was confined to a wheelchair, or that the Munchausen's by proxy was as bad as it was, that
Huh.
maybe she wasn't as restricted as we thought,
Mm-hmm.
or and then other pictures of the crime scene itself maybe indicate
More involvement from her?
more more like, from my understanding, and again, I haven't seen it, so I don't know, but from what I've gathered, it sounds like maybe there's a lot of overkill
Yes.
shown,
But I
and that,
thought we knew
to
that.
me, and that, or that to some people, that's oh, this isn't self-defense, this isn't you had to get out, this is you and your boyfriend wanted to kill your mom.
Yeah, I just thought that we knew that. I
Yeah.
thought that we knew it was a really, really, really bloody scene, that it was kind of overkill, but it was out of her hands, right? She
Yeah.
was out of the room. Maybe she just said kill my mom, and then he went ham, and she talks about him like he is super sadistic, and was in,
Yeah.
and that basically this was a fantasy he kind of wanted to fulfill anyway.
Yeah.
So I'm just
There
I
is
guess I'm just,
also,
and you're saying there's pictures outside of the crime scene of her maybe living her life a little more freely,
it's not pictures of her, but pictures from her
the house.
bedroom.
Oh,
Yeah.
sure,
And that, and again, I don't know what could indicate these things,
sure,
but also I think that that's coupled with other things that people are saying. There are also people who are saying, despite all of that, they simply don't believe Gypsy Rose Blanchard,
sure.
and that some people have pointed out that she actually does have a birth defect, and that explains a lot of her facial features, and um her mouth and stuff, and her eyes, I guess. I don't know what it is, but that she did have a birth defect, and so her mom was not
Perhaps at
wrong.
least at one point
Right.
was doing
Right.
actual medical care.
Right. And
Sure.
at one point was not wrong that she had all these medical concerns. And then also pointed out that I know that there's the complication of Hurricane Katrina, but people also pointed out what doctors are going to prescribe all these medications and do all of these surgeries with no proof of these disorders. And
Yeah,
so
but
there had to
Munchausen's
be
by proxy
something wrong with
happens all the
her.
time in that way.
Right. And so, well, I'm
Yeah,
they're
yeah.
saying
I'm just arguing to
so
them.
something had to be wrong with her in some degree for her to get these things done. And I think that
So
that's
it sounds like people are just revisiting the case and changing their
yeah,
mind.
I think
Okay.
that's a fair point. I also think that and from what we've seen in like the act and whatever, that she wasn't always getting medication for Gypsy through doctors or honestly. Um, and also like I don't think I know like one of the claims was that she had like leukemia, and she got like a Make-A-Wish or whatever. I don't think she actually ever went to a hospital and did chemo.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like there are doctors who like just gave her chemo radiation
Yeah.
with no evidence. I think that that was just that
Her mom was a
there
very
were things,
convincing liar in like
yes,
society.
there were things she was getting medications for in some way, shape, or form, and there were also things that she was saying were wrong with her daughter that just weren't true.
Yeah. I'm just sitting here thinking like the way people are talking about it, I'm like, did a crime scene photo get released where like you can see Gypsy Rose in the mirror, like a part of this? Like, I'm like, it just sounded like something was released that was like so damning.
Yeah.
But it sounds more like all of a sudden, now that she's really famous, we're like, wait, let's rethink this.
Yeah.
And now everyone's like, I don't know about that.
I think people are also off put by her because
I think she's become a very hateable character, and so now they're
yeah.
like, oh, we hate her, and she must have done it worse.
I think that like for most people you would expect her to like come out and like not want to live her life at all because she's so filled with like guilt and shame.
Yeah.
And she's not like reacting that way.
And
I
she
think
like
that's very
says she feels
off-putting
so
for people.
guilty, but
Right.
yeah. Okay, well, thank you. I just
You're
needed
welcome.
that from you.
This week I have another requested episode. I said
Why do
fan
you get
request.
so many?
I said fan requested, but I actually don't think it's anyone that's ever listened to our show. She just was like, "Oh, you have a true crime podcast? Please cover this case." It's local to her, so I don't think you have ever heard of it. There's not a whole lot of information on it, so hopefully this is the first time some of you are hearing of it. I also like it is pretty short. The story I have for you or the information I have, but and so like halfway through I was like, is this gonna be worth telling on the podcast because it is so short? I was like, there's some things in there that get like really like I'm really like it's a stretch I'm relating it to the story, but these people sound like the greatest people on the face of the planet, and so like I do really want to like talk about
Tell their
them
story.
because
Yeah.
they literally sound like they're like everything you want a human being to be, like truthfully. So are you ready?
Mhm.
Okay. On April 13th, 2020, the residents of Fair Oaks Avenue in Chicago gathered for their nightly 7 p.m. cheer.
Cute COVID cheer.
And nightly.
Yeah.
So
I
the
remember
neighbor
when New York like did that. It was so
it was cute. So since this was a nightly thing, the neighbors noticed pretty quickly that two staples of the neighborhood were missing. It
they
was
said our favorite people are gone.
yeah, the angels on earth. Um, it was husband and wife duo Thomas Johnson and Leslie Ann Jones. Only a month into the pandemic lockdowns, the neighborhood looked forward to this nightly ritual. This was like their only human contact. And so they immediately noticed that some of their friends were missing. And as far as they knew, there was no reason for them to be missing. I
Where
think
would you go?
I think your first thought is like, oh, do they have COVID? But so like as far as they knew, the couple was active, they were healthy, there was no reason they shouldn't be in attendance. They were there the
They
night
were like,
before.
they've been quarantining.
Right. They were just here yesterday. So the couple's next door neighbor, Christy, took it upon herself to head over to their house and take a look around. She knocked and she got a bad feeling when no one answered or even looked out of the home. Like she thought they would at least like say like, we have COVID.
Mm-hmm.
We can't
Go
come out,
away.
She noticed that their shades were closed, their curtains were drawn, and their dog was unusually quiet with someone knocking at the door.
Don't do this.
So Christy and the other neighbors called the couple's godson to come over and check on them. I think they had originally called like their sons and they weren't there, like in the area, so they had the godson come and check on them. He was 20. So when the 20-year-old arrived at the home, he took a look around. The door was closed, but it was unlocked, which is
She
odd.
didn't try that?
No,
I
I
mean, I
guess
guess she didn't want to just like barge
she's a
in.
neighbor. Yeah. He thought that was unusual. He made his way inside, and just inside the door, he found 67-year-old Leslie's body on the staircase. She was wearing her nightgown, and it appeared as though she had been attempting to flee the home. It looked like
No.
she had like run down the stairs.
No.
As the godson, I don't know his name. As
Not
the
Leslie
godson,
Jones.
I know. As the godson went upstairs, he found 69-year-old Tom's body face down in a bed in one of the bedrooms. Police arrived at the home at 7:47 p.m. and Tom and Leslie were both pronounced dead at the scene.
I hope this
Both,
person got COVID.
yeah.
Being out and about.
Both of them had been stabbed multiple times in the head, shoulders, and chest, and Leslie had additional wounds on her arms. It was later determined that Tom was stabbed 17 times and Leslie had been stabbed 34 times.
What the fuck?
Yeah.
Were they like defensive wounds on her arms?
I don't.
And then
So
would you be stabbed more because you're like fighting back?
I kind of assume defensive
Yeah.
wounds since he doesn't have stab wounds on his arms.
And she was like
But it
trying to
doesn't.
flee.
Yeah, it doesn't clarify. That's my guess because they're on her arms. They're both causes of death were listed as multiple sharp force injuries and determined to be homicides. Obviously.
Yeah.
Their dog had also been stabbed but survived its wounds.
He was just quiet.
Survived its wounds and was sent to live with a friend of the couple. Since you're so invested in the dog, I had this later, but I'll put it here because it doesn't really matter. My favorite thing that was said about this dog is a reporter said, "No one blames the dog."
Yeah.
I was like, was that in question?
Like dogs should have protected them better?
Yeah. He said like the dog did what it was supposed to do until it was incapacitated. And so we can't blame the dog. I was like, I wasn't going to.
Unless this is like a German Shepherd police dog, I was not going to blame the dog anyway.
Fear not. But I was like, yeah, he did do what he was supposed to do. So, I'm going to tell you about the greatest people on the face of the planet.
Cool.
Tom and Leslie met in 1975 while working together at the Legal Assistance Foundation, a nonprofit organization that provides free legal services. They got married and had 4 sons of their own while also hosting numerous foster children in their home over the years. Leslie received her bachelor's degree in economics from Yale and her MBA at the University of Chicago, and Tom earned his bachelor's degree from American University before they both attended Harvard Law School.
Cute.
They worked together at the Johnson, Jones, Snelling, Gilbert, and Davis law firm, founded in 1984.
Jones like her?
Yes! And Johnson like him.
Nice!
I also like, that's the other thing is, they got married in 75, and they have 2 different last names.
Get a girl. She said, it's so that my name can be in the law firm.
Right.
Exactly.
Their firm specialized in healthcare, employment and labor law, civil rights, and commercial litigation. Leslie specialized in federal litigation, real estate, corporate transactions, and zoning. She also taught an ethics class at Northwestern's law school. And outside of law, she was a talented knitter, jewelry maker, basket maker, Japanese ink painter, and screen printer.
What does she not do? Jesus.
AKA my kind of gal.
What? So many things.
Love her. Tom also did many things. He had served as a counsel for Chicago Mayor Harold Washington and worked on Timothy Evans's mayoral campaign and Jesus Chuy Garcia's campaign for public office. He
Cool.
specialized in social justice cases and corporate accountability, working some cases all the way up to the U.S. Supreme Court.
Neat.
Cool ass people. He had represented the Chicago Housing Authority for over 24 years to help establish more affordable housing for the residents of Chicago. He worked to register more citizens to vote, improve the electoral system in county, and reform the county's bail system. Tom was also a children's baseball coach, and Leslie worked with local artists. I also saw he coached something else other than baseball, and that a lot of the kids he coached were like kids whose parents were like going through like custody battles that he was like meeting them in court. Um Tom was a hearings officer for the Chicago Police Board, while Leslie served on the board of Hephzibah Children's Association. In his role on the board, Tom presided over hearings and had recently been a part of several controversial and high-profile cases. The president of the Chicago Police Board, Guion Foreman, said about Tom, quote, Tom was like the judge in the sense that he presided over the hearing. Very little was going to get by Tom. He was going to evaluate this from both sides to make sure that all the questions were answered in an effort to make sure that justice is truly served. The not knowing is the hard part. Is it something associated with one of our cases? Is it something related to the crime and violence that takes place in Chicago? End quote. Keep that in your brain.
Okay.
Police and the public felt pretty sure that this was a personal crime and like a one-time thing. Like they were targeted. Because Tom and Leslie were both prominent lawyers in the area, it seemed to make sense that they were targeted and that maybe that was why. Retired Chicago homicide detective Richard Shack gave a brief profile of who he thought the suspect could be. He believed that their attacker knew them and had a personal vendetta against them due to the overkill at the scene.
Mm-hmm.
When describing who he would be looking for, he said, quote, I don't think this was random because of the overkill. I think somebody planned it and had something against them. Mr. Johnson was a late night guy. Like he stays up late, maybe?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
People would know that by casing the place and determine when people would be in bed. I'm looking for enemies. I'm looking for anybody that would want to do that much damage to somebody. You could say the person was looking for something specific and found it or didn't, or they were trying to make it look like a robbery or home invasion that it wasn't. End quote.
Yeah, I don't know, man. 34 stabs doesn't look like a home invasion.
Yeah, that's a lot of
I mean, it
stabs.
is a home invasion, but it doesn't just look like a robbery gone wrong.
Right. In a press conference about the murders, Chief LaDon Reynolds claimed that the killer must have spent considerable time in the home and pointed out that they were dealing with a large crime scene. So the house was 3 stories and nearly 4,000 square feet with over 10,000 feet of land around it. The reports of the scene indicated that there were no signs of forced entry. The front door had been unlocked. It was also noted that there was no evidence of robbery or any ransacking of the home, aside from Tom's wallet being dropped on the bedroom floor with its contents scattered, which to me
means
sounds
not.
like proof of who he was. If he was targeted. So only his wallet was disturbed. So I'm like, okay, maybe they're looking for his ID.
Or like, yeah, so it's like a hitman.
Right.
And they have to like confirm like this is
Right.
what I think it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it also confirms it's like not a robbery.
Right. Like they didn't take anything.
Yeah.
They also found footprints from both the dog and the offender stepping in blood and then tracking it throughout the home.
Of course the dog did.
hmm Which they hoped would lead to at least some clue, like, okay, we can tell that they're wearing a men's shoe and it's this
Sure.
size or whatever. Um, they were also hoping that with such a violent attack, the offender may have left some sort of DNA behind. They said, like, with the amount of stab wounds and like I think what we are assuming are defensive wounds on Leslie's arms,
Yeah.
that surely the attacker received some sort of injury
Sure.
and bled at the scene or whatever, and it like wasn't
Scratched her,
clean.
hair ripped
Right.
out, something.
The scene wasn't clean, so they were hoping that they could find something that they could then test against DNA samples in a criminal database. The FBI came in to help with the investigation, but after interviewing neighbors and looking through security footage of the street, they weren't able to get any ideas on who could have done it. And before they knew it, a year had gone by, and they were no closer to solving the double homicide. Loved ones of the couple began to become cynical and wondered if the police didn't want the crime to be solved. They felt like smaller crimes were being solved first, or like more attention was being given to like smaller crimes.
Sure.
And according to the source material, that's kind of what everyone in Oak Park began to think, that police were intentionally not solving this case because Tom Johnson worked on the police review board, putting corrupt police officers in prison. Chief Reynolds responded to these claims by saying, quote, "I can personally assure you that the investigation of this shocking and brutal crime has not stalled or slowed in any way. To call the gathering and processing of forensic evidence related to such a crime meticulous would be an understatement. Apprehending the person or persons who committed this brutal crime remains the number one priority of the Oak Park Police Department." End quote. So that's what he says. Despite that, the top theory is that the couple was killed by a disgruntled legal client from either the Chicago Police Board or the several other cases that they worked in the over 40 years that they spent representing.
Pissed a lot of people off in 40 years.
Right. Representing both large corporations and individuals in and I think that like more so large corporations or police board kind of vibes, because most of the individuals that they represented were like people like in poverty or like people that they were like serving like pro bono, I think. And so
Sure.
I think that they did a lot of good on like those personal levels, but for like the police, and not that that wasn't good for what they were doing for the police board and with large corporations, but I think that that pissed more people off.
Sure.
Tom had presided over several police misconduct cases that resulted in officers losing their jobs or their pensions. Detective Shack responded to these theories saying, quote, and I think this is such a weird fucking thing to say, quote,
That's the quote.
end quote.
By Mary.
He said, quote, "Certainly you would look at that. I personally don't think it was law enforcement. If law enforcement was involved, I think it would be quicker and cleaner. They're going to do it and get out." End quote.
Like they're gonna catch one of their own quicker, or
No.
they're gonna like close the case.
I think he means that if he's saying if law enforcement killed them,
Yeah.
they would have done a better job.
Yeah, or does he mean they would have done less meticulous, like they would have just been like, oh, didn't find anything. But
no, I think he's saying like they wouldn't have stabbed them 34 times. they would have gotten in and out.
Oh,
Because he's
for
saying,
the
like,
actual crime, they would have
right,
gotten
like,
in and out.
he said, I don't think it was a member of law enforcement that
Law
killed them.
enforcement wouldn't be that,
Because
like,
they would have done,
disorganized
they would have been better at it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good one. Yep. Thank you.
I just, you're not making me think any less that someone on law enforcement did it by being like, if they did it, they would have done really
great. You would
great.
never find out.
Right.
You would never catch them.
Despite the belief by Detective Shack that this wasn't a member of law enforcement, some cases came to mind that didn't like sit right with everyone on how they ended. So in 2019, Tom oversaw the hearings for 4 officers accused of covering up the investigation into the October 2014 shooting of Laquan McDonald. In this case, a white police officer fatally shot at 17-year-old Laquan McDonald 16 times, and the shooting was caught on video and circulated around the country, sparking controversy and outrage at the murder of another young black man at the hands of police officers. And so the part of that case that Tom presided over was not the cop who shot Laquan, it was cops who then tried to cover up
okay.
that crime.
Sure. The corruption part.
Right. That is as is his job.
Yes.
He also presided over the hearing of an officer who shot and killed 55-year-old Betty Jones and 19-year-old Quintonio LeGrier in 2016. Police were called to their apartment building. They were neighbors. Police were called to their apartment building in response to a domestic disturbance call about Quintonio. And when they arrived, Quintonio was reportedly having a mental health episode and was holding an aluminum bat in his hands. Police fired 8 shots at him, killing Quintonio and Betty, who was standing behind him during the ordeal.
That's so crazy. I didn't hear you say that he was holding a gun.
No, he was holding a bat.
I know.
Oh, I thought you were saying I'm so crazy. I thought you said I'm so crazy. Yeah. So, and again, I just like these people are like such good people. Like this is what he does every day for his job. But those specific cases made people wonder, like, okay, he's done a few of these now. Is he really starting to piss people off?
Yeah, you know, and right there in 2020.
One interesting, but I put likely unconnected. It's definitely unconnected, but an interesting piece of information that I feel like I have to mention because it was so crazy to me, has to do with the house across the street from the Johnson Jones home. And we gotta rewind very long ago. On June 15th, 1899, an electrical engineer from Oak Park named Edwin Henry Cheney married his college sweetheart, Mama Borthwick. Mama? What's her name? After having 2 children, John and Martha, Edwin commissioned a well-known architect, Frank Lloyd Wright, to build his family a home on Fair Oaks Avenue. However, Frank and Mama began a love affair.
Oh, the architect.
Frank is the architect, yeah. In 1909, they took off to Europe together. And when they got back from their trip, Frank began working on a new home for the Cheney family.
For him and Mama?
I think it was originally for Edwin and Mama, but it was on 600 acres. 600 acres.
It was actually a boat.
In Spring Green, Wisconsin.
Oh, nice.
It's called Taliesin? I don't know how to say it. Taliesin?
The house?
Yes, the name of the house. I'm not kidding. I looked at pictures of this house for so fucking long, and I was like, oh my god, like I can't wait to open this episode and say I'm gonna tie this into High School Musical somehow, because I was so certain that that is where they filmed High School Musical too. It looks just like it. It's not. They filmed that
Nice.
in Utah. This is in Wisconsin.
Dang.
So Mama moved into the Wisconsin house while it was still under construction, and in 1911, Mama and Edwin were officially divorced, and a year later, Edwin remarried a friend of Mama's, leaving her and her two children living at Taliesin on their own. And he went back to his house that is across the street from Leslie and Tom's house. Then, on
Well,
August
not
5th,
yet.
yeah, but it's across the street from
Future Leslie
yeah,
and Tom's house.
yes. On August 15th, 1914, a tragedy happened.
Oh no.
A 31-year-old chef and servant from Barbados named Julian Carleton was working at Taliesin for the summer. Carleton had come highly recommended to the family and was originally a joy to have in the home. But at some point, he began to display some mental health concerns.
Mm-hmm.
He would stay up all night with a butcher knife, looking out the window, getting increasingly more and more paranoid by the day.
Mm-hmm.
What was he paranoid about? I don't know. It just said
Mhm.
he was paranoid.
Something outside.
He has paranoia.
Mhm.
So Frank and Mama noticed this, and they said, "Ooh, that's concerning.
Mhm.
We're worried about him."
We should get him to a hospital, they said, hopefully.
No, they didn't. They went under his nose, and they put an ad in the local paper to look for a replacement for him.
Okay, did they plan for how to get rid of him though? They were just gonna fire the butcher knife guy that has extreme paranoia. They said this is gonna be great. He's gonna take it so well.
And it ends really well. On
Awesome.
August 15th,
Tragedy.
they tell him
You're fired.
that it's his last day.
Mm-hmm.
But he said, "I'm not leaving without my revenge."
Mm-hmm.
On everyone who had wronged him. Employers, co-workers, all of it. First on the list, surprisingly, was not anyone who owned the home.
Oh.
It was a fellow servant of the home named Emile Brodell, who had what they referred to as racially abused Carleton.
Okay.
I truly don't know what that means.
I mean,
It obviously doesn't sound good.
yeah. I can guess.
Like abused him based on his race.
Yeah.
I'm guessing. I was trying to figure out like
just racial slurs all the time. Like,
yes, because I had mentioned he's from Barbados. He was like Afro-Caribbean, and
yeah.
I think
who's the other guy?
Emile.
Where's he from?
I have no idea. I want to say that Julian Carleton's. It said like his on one side he was Afro-Caribbean, on the other side was something else that was also like of like a black ethnicity, and so like
fair
racially abused.
Okay.
And after a certain point of the racial abuse, Carleton and Emile had gotten into a physical altercation. This was a few days before he was fired. So, at around noon on the day he was fired, Carleton attacked
So
Mama.
he did actually just say, "I will not leave," and they still did not take him to the hospital? They said, "Just hang out." Yeah, whatever.
They said this is your last day.
Oh, okay,
Like,
sure.
be out by the end of the day.
When you leave for the day, don't come back.
Right, yeah. So at around noon, which, I mean, where is he going? Because he's staying up all night with a butcher knife, and they can see him. He lives there.
Mm-hmm.
He attacked
30-day
Mama.
notice would have been nice.
Right. Mama, Martha, and John with a hatchet on the porch.
Who's Martha? The kids.
Martha and John are
the
their
kids.
Yeah. He attacked them with a hatchet on the porch off of the living room. Mama was killed by a single blow to the head. John was killed as he sat in his chair. And Martha managed to run off but was chased down and killed in the courtyard. He then killed Emil and attacked the other occupants of the house, like other people that worked there. Frank was out of town, so he's fine.
He's got more things to build in his lifetime.
He coated the bodies in gasoline and set them on fire. 2 people did manage to escape. There were 2 survivors. He then attempted suicide by drinking hydrochloric acid, but survived. But did completely burn his esophagus.
Yeah.
Which is like, how terrible. Now you're like, you're stuck like that?
Yeah. Was he burning down the house?
Yes.
Couldn't he have just
stayed
in it? I know that's a really awful death, but like,
yeah. So is swallowing hydrochloric acid, I would think. Even though this attack and fire happened in Wisconsin in the early 1900s, the Edwin Cheney house in Oak Park is a historic tourist attraction. And so I think the fact that it sits like right across the street from the scene of a grisly murder in 2020 is
and like somewhat race related. Right. It could possibly be race related, I guess.
Right. 2021. Like, obviously they're not connected. That's of course not what I'm saying. But I do think that's like it's really interesting. And I think what made it seem so much more interesting to me was that when I was doing research about the case, a lot of the research came from people who are local to Oak Park and like either knew the couple or knew people who knew the couple. And they were kind of like blog posts more so. And so there was one whose one girl was writing about Christy, the next door neighbor who had originally gone to check out the house, was her mom's best friend. And so she had heard everything from Christy. And then there was another person who was writing that his wife is from Oak Park. And he's like, hey, have you heard of this? Like they went to visit and somebody brought it up and he was like, have you heard of this? And she's like, yeah. And so he said he was like, oh, okay. And it was like recent at the time. So he went to look at the house and he was like, I have been on this street before. Like, why have I been on the street before? And he was like, oh, I visited the Edwin Cheney house that is literally right there. Like, that's so crazy that I've already been on the street. So,
okay, hear me out. The ghost of Emil really is racist. Okay. The ghost of Emil traveled, has been living in the Edwin. They all went to the Edwin Cheney house. They were displaced. They went there.
Right.
And then he found out that these well-meaning white people were helping out people of color. And he said, absolutely not.
Disgusting.
And he ghost murdered them. And it is connected.
I like that you said Emil really is racist, as if we had doubts before that someone who racially abused someone else.
Well, someone who allegedly racially abused someone from someone who's having a mental health crisis and had extreme paranoia. So I am saying, if in reality, not just in, what's his name? Carlton's.
Yeah.
Julian. If not just in Julian's mind, if Emil really was racist.
Yeah. I will say they got a lot of the piecing together of the case from the 2 survivors.
Yeah.
And less from Carlton.
Sure.
Or Julian Carlton.
Sure. Yeah. So where is he? He did survive though?
Yeah.
He just left the house burning. He said, I'm just gonna live with my throat.
I don't think he left. I think Well, I think he was away from the house when he swallowed the hydrochloric acid.
Oh, okay.
I don't think, like, and then he like laid there in
And
preparation of
didn't
death,
die.
and then he didn't
And
die.
he's like,
Yeah.
I can't go back to the burning
Right.
house now.
The version of the house that I thought was from High School Musical 2 is called Tallyman. I don't know. I can't figure out how to say it. Tallyman 3
Okay.
is the third version of this house.
Is it an S? Or is it an SM? Talisman?
No, it's not Talisman. I would know how to read that. It's
Taliesin.
T. Oh, it's Taliesin. Yeah, it's Taliesin.
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 Taliesin West.
Okay, so back to our heroes, our queen and king. Just at this point, that's like everything I have on the murders. But just in case you had any questions about how wonderful these people are, let me give it to you. In the years since their murders, the neighborhood has continued to get together at 7 p.m. outside of the 113
No.
outside of their 113-year-old green home on the 500 block of Fair Oaks Avenue on the anniversary of their deaths to remember them. Every year on April 13th, they go out at 7 p.m. and they do a cheer. One neighbor gave
Wreck
us
me.
I know. One neighbor gave a statement about the couple saying, quote, "We think about Leslie and Tom every day. While we're still pained by the tragic circumstances of their death, that pain is far outweighed by the countless memories of their being our dedicated neighbors, wise counselors, and dearest of friends." End quote.
Shoot.
This same neighbor also said that he had every confidence that the Oak Park Police Department was doing their job to the best of their ability and was working to solve the case. His wife commented as well, saying, quote, "The pain of Tom and Leslie's loss is very real. With time and by paying attention, I see that Tom and Leslie live on in our community. Even so, I miss them every day." End quote. The number of nonprofits and just causes that have been founded in honor of Tom and Leslie has truly floored me. Hefziba, which is the art program Leslie worked with, founded a therapy program called Art Heals in their memory, which helps children in foster care release their trauma through creative processes. The Oak Park Area Arts Council started a scholarship program for female artists of color in Leslie Ann Jones's name. On July 22nd, 2023, a house in Austin, which is a nonprofit mission home in Chicago dedicated to finding loving, stable families, held a ceremony at their Austin headquarters at 533 North Pine Avenue, where a room was named in the couple's honor after their loved ones had made donations in remembrance of them. They raised so much money in their name that they named a room after them. And a tree was gifted to the nonprofit by a close friend of the couple named John Toohey. He chose a dogwood tree to signalize renewal and growth instead of focusing on the loss of Leslie and Tom.
And
When
the
commenting,
dog.
yeah, dogwood tree.
To signify the dog.
When commenting on the donation, Toohey said, quote, "It flowers every year in spring, right around the time that they passed.
No.
I know. They want a house in Austin to benefit from this gift. It touches directly to people." End quote.
In Austin?
It's called a house in Austin. It's in the Austin neighborhood of Chicago. I was like, why are
this
they
shit is
doing this in
national?
Texas? Yeah. I was like, why are we why are we dedicating a room to them in Texas? I finally figured it out.
Yeah.
I looked up the address because I was like, where is this?
Must know.
The home is also renaming their parent education room to the Fair Oaks room after the street Leslie and Tom lived on. A representative from a house in Austin explained that this serves as a place where parents can hang out and support one another, complete school assignments, apply for jobs, attend cooking classes, and meal prep. She spoke of the donations made in the couple's honor, stating, quote, parents use the space individually to hang out, complete school assignments, secure employments through the use of our laptops, and every year the tree will bloom and we will be reminded of the couple and how much they cared about the Austin community, wanting to see it so much better than it currently is, end quote. Leslie and Tom's sons specifically requested that the room not be directly named after their parents, as they believed Leslie and Tom wouldn't have wanted their names to overshadow the important work done in the room. The boys were happy to support the organization, even though their parents weren't connected to it when they were alive. They didn't like work with a house in Austin, but it like is what they believed in. One of their sons, Charlie, said, quote, providing support to young families is something our parents were very passionate about because investments in early life development produce even more well-rounded people, especially in communities on Chicago's west side, which have historically faced multiple systematic disadvantages, end quote. That's how you know you raised a kid fucking right.
Mm-hmm.
If by chance anyone listening to this has any information on the murders of Tom Johnson and Leslie Ann Jones, please contact the Oak Park Police at 708-386-3800. If you don't want to say your name, you can also call anonymously at 708-434-1636 or provide information online, and we will put the link in our show notes for this episode of that crime tip site.
That was good.
Thank you. Did that not sound like literally the best people in the world? Like racial justice, raising great kids, foster parents, artistic, baseball coaches, like friendly neighbors, like literally dream humans. And like it sounds like they do all of this like without batting an eye. Like this isn't like something. It sounds like this isn't like something that they had
the
to
fact
like
that their
learn.
kid is like so sure, like do not put their name on that.
Yeah, then
they
he's
would
like,
not want that.
Yeah, and then he's like, my parents have never like worked with this organization or heard of it, but it sounds like exactly what they want.
But it makes so much sense,
because they care so much about parents and families that are affected by the foster care system or custody battles, and especially and the fact that he's like in Chicago where there's so much like systematic disadvantages for those families, like that's great kids, great people. I saw something and I don't remember if it was like a report or like they were filming something, but I did see something where somebody had asked the sons to like come in to help with it, and they said it was like too painful to like rehash all of it. But like I just think that like it like struck me, I guess, like how sad it is that you like hear these things as like on like Dateline and stuff, where like they lit up a room, like they were like just the best kind of person to be around, and like it's tragic that we lost them. But like in this case, it sounds like these were wonderful people, and that's why they lost them. Like that they were doing the right thing, and it sounds like more than likely someone took them because they were doing what they knew was right, and it like that it sucks that happened that way, but they sound like wonderful people, and also they're so cute.
And keep sending us requests so that we can do these like kind of small obscure cases and people can hear them.
Yeah, there was like literally like every single source I had, I think, was local. And a couple of them were like blog posts. There were no other podcasts about it or anything, really that I could find about these two. So, but like they sound like angels. So, you know, they deserve to have their case solved. I do have one other case that was requested by me, but we won't do it. Sorry.
Don't tell them that. Now they're not going to request anything.
We won't do it right now because Katie and I have a plan for it.
Oh. Cool.
Yeah.
Are we going to fight about it?
Yep.
Cool.
That's why I'm pushing so hard to do it. Because someone asked me to.
It's going to be bad.
But Ed Buck was a request too.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to say something. Oh, we haven't done a bonus episode in a while, so we're hoping that will be coming soon.
Mm-hmm. It should be.
But yeah.
And then we'll have another something fun coming for October.
Halloween.
Spooky time.
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.